Hello, my friends. D.L. Anderson here. Welcome back to Transformation by Truth podcast as we share the truth concerning these last days and what you must do to save yourself from the violent times that are just ahead. Today's podcast is a word of truth accounting of the end times. The end is coming. The end is near. Today's podcast is entitled End Times 162 Rapture Truth, One Taken, One Left, Part 2. The podcast objectives are reveal where the chosen elect are being led, analyze the urgency of the season we are in, connect the two prevailing quests we are on, and analyze how we are taken from the first season in these last days. This lesson contains timelines and other visuals. Therefore, if you are listening to the podcast, I advise you to watch the video version on our website or YouTube, or request a PDF of the lesson so you can add the visual effect. Where all roads lead. Now, we ended the most recent podcast providing a scriptural definition of what it means to be taken versus what it means to be left. In this order, we came to see how those who are taken are received by the Father, and those who are left are abandoned by him. They are left behind. Now, the question I would like to revisit is, what does it mean to be left behind? That is to ask, where is the Father leaving them? Here we have our first treasure box in this lesson. This is one of the most critical questions of these last days. For many who have been called will be left behind. They will not be guarded in these last days. Now, the answer lies within this treasure box. Vis-a-vis, to be left behind is an evolution of the Father's will to guard his children and to disregard all others, an evolution that will reach a climax in these last days. Now, the next question we must ask is, how will this evolution of the Father's will be manifested in these last days? What is the climax? What will we see? The answer, we will witness a spiritual and physical exodus in which the children of Elohim will, by the power of Elohim, enter the renewed promised land. Now, reviewing the timeline below, we see the land of Israel will be restored in season 6 of these last days. As this restoration is established upon a promise, we rightly assess our future home as the renewed promised land. Here we have another treasure box. As succeeding each season is a prerequisite to continuing into the next season, the collective purpose of the first 5 seasons in these last days is to bring the chosen elect into the renewed promised land. Now, we will spend a good majority of the remainder of this end time series detailing the arduous path we must take and the difficult journey we must make to enter the renewed promised land. For now, I would have you to know and to always remember, this is the ultimate goal of these last days. It is to enter the renewed promised land. This is where all roads lead for the faithful members of the chosen elect. The urgency of this hour. Now, this is precisely what it means to be taken. To wit, the Father is taking us on a journey, spiritual and physical in nature, to bring us into the renewed promised land, and during the most violent times in the history of our world. Now, I'm not saying this to scare anyone. As always, I am merely stating the truth so that you know what we are up against, and such that you effectively prepare yourself for the task at hand. For as I have said before, and often, where there is no preparation, there can be no salvation. As it pertains to this journey, those of you who have been with us since the beginning know that I have labeled it as the quest for holiness, perfection, and everlasting life. We have been on this quest from the very start, and that has not changed. The only thing that has changed are the times and seasons we are living in. This crucial change has increased the urgency of the hour we are living in. Here is how. Those who are taken will have obtained the seal of Elohim prior to the end of the second season in these last days. Therefore, even if you are still alive after the second season and these last days are over, and you do not have the seal of Elohim, you will not be taken. You will not be guarded. Eventually, you will die, and it won't be long. Here lies the increased urgency, for as I have said before, the second season is almost over. It is coming to an end. Therefore, all who will be taken and guarded by the Father and carried through the fire and the flames of these last days will soon be determined. And there is nothing you can do to change your fate after the decree. On this wise, the journey we are on can be viewed as the quest for salvation in these last days. For you will not be saved if the Father has not taken you, if he has not selected you for the journey, if he has not put his seal upon you to guard you in the hour of temptation. Notwithstanding, the factors of holiness and perfection have not changed. They are yet the requirements of our election. Trust me, the word of truth reveals on multiple occasions how the Father will not take us if we are not being set apart and walking in the perfection of his Spirit. And by now, you should know why. Remember the purpose of the millennial kingdom and the Father's global vision of righteousness. Remember the parable of the darnel of the field and what happened to the darnel prior to the second coming. Matthew 13:40 through 43. As the darnel then is gathered and burned in the fire, so it shall be at the end of this age. The Son of Adam shall send out his messengers, and they shall gather out of his reign all the stumbling blocks and those doing lawlessness, and shall throw them into the furnace of fire. There shall be wailing and gnashing of teeth. Then the righteous shall shine forth as the sun in the kingdom of their Father. He who has ears to hear, let him hear. Heretofore, we strengthen our case on holiness and perfection. Truly, the Father was serious when he said, "Be ye holy, for I am holy." See Exodus 19:6, Exodus 22:31, Leviticus 27, Leviticus 20:26. Likewise, the son of Adam was serious when he said, "Be ye therefore perfect, as your Father in the heavens is perfect." See Matthew 5:48. For his eyes are on the faithful within the earth, that they may dwell with him, and he who walks in a perfect way shall serve him. See Psalm 101:6. Carried through restoration. Now, it was important for me to establish the connection between the quest for holiness, perfection, and everlasting life, and the quest for salvation in these last days, so that you understand at this early interval what it will take for you to obtain the seal of Elohim. Now, we will spend a good amount of time analyzing the sealing of the set apart ones in all the 7 seasons in these last days in the next level of courses. However, the Father has led me to provide a high level analysis of these seasons with specific regards to the differing realities of those who are taken and those who are left, beginning with the restoration of the nation of Israel. Now, as you can see by the timeline below, the restoration of the nation of Israel is the first season in these last days. The same way the journey we are on is both physical and spiritual in nature, the restoration of the nation of Israel is also physical and spiritual in nature. Notwithstanding, the restoration is predominantly spiritual in nature, i.e., the spiritual factors of restoration transcend the physical, and thus the spiritual takes precedence. Now, here we have a treasure box. The nation of Israel is a spiritual nation of set apart people. For the restoration within and of itself is a predominantly spiritual event. Now, this is in stark contrast to the original nation of Israel, which was a predominantly physical entity. This is true, even though there were spiritual men and women in this body, as well as strangers who were given the opportunity to convert if they followed the law. The bottom line is this: the original nation of Israel was predominantly physical in nature, for the Father had not yet poured out his Spirit upon all flesh as he has in these last days. See Isaiah 44:3, Joel 2:28-29, and Acts 2:17-18. Now, this is not the case for the restoration which has occurred in these last days. My dear friends, Elohim is not restoring a physical nation. Quite the contrary, he is building a spiritual army. And here is why this is so important. If the renewed nation of Israel was established upon physical attributes as opposed to spiritual attributes, it would fail the same way the original nation had failed. This is especially the case when you understand how we will endure much more in these last days than they ever endured, and yet they still failed. Notwithstanding, where they failed, we will succeed. For as I said before, the renewed nation of Israel is a predominantly spiritual entity. We possess the dominion, the authority, and the power to do all things through the Messiah who strengthens us. Here again, we will execute a deep dive into this season of restoration and I will provide you with greater details. Yet for now, I have been led to share this high-level analysis to establish the foundation of what it means to be taken, and that foundation is restoration. My dear friends, it has been written, the chosen elect are being restored to Elohim in spirit and in truth. And the latter is suggesting we would be exposed to error and to lies. And we have. We have been exposed to great error and to great lies. Here lies the inflection and one of the greatest requirements on the restoration. 'Tis a critical matter. We must succeed if we are to be taken, such that we are included in this spiritual nation. Consider it faithfully. The men and women of the renewed nation of Israel have, from their awakening until now, persistently thrown away all the errors and all the lies they inherited in favor of the truth they have been revealed. This, my friends, is the fundamental requirement of the restoration, and only those who are being restored will be taken. Only the restored will be carried into the next season, i.e., this is the first test we must pass to move on to the next season in these last days. Per the timeline below, those who are restored in the spirit are prepared to be sealed in the ensuing season. Some others may indeed be alive to see season 2, but it won't matter if they do not obtain the seal of Elohim. And here is the most important thing to remember. They won't obtain this seal if they were not restored during season 1. Now, the degrees and the particulars for restoration are unique for every individual, and they are all contingent to spiritual convictions. Therefore, and as I always say, when you are convicted by the Spirit, you shouldn't mess around. Although you may not realize it, this conviction is the vehicle that will ensure that you pass every test in the current season, such that you are taken and not left behind. For many are called, but few are chosen. The question of the hour is simply this: will you be chosen? Will you be the one who is taken and safely carried through these last days? Or will you be the one who is left behind? Now, here is the final word. To be taken is to survive each season in these last days and to be safely carried into the next. In this regard, to be taken is the equivalence of salvation, and thus it not only retains the similar characteristics, it also suffers the same misconceptions. Vis-a-vis, many within the religious world believe salvation is an instantaneous event, and once you are saved, per their misinterpretation, you are always saved, again, per their misinterpretation. Likewise, they believe the one who is taken via the rapture is taken instantaneously. And once you are taken, you will always be with the master. Very needless to say, they are wrong on both accounts. Without controversy, salvation is a conditional process which is neither validated nor completed during this life. Quite the contrary, it is completed at the conclusion of our natural life, and it is validated at the judgment. Notwithstanding, there is a simple way you can determine if you are surely being saved. A humble test to prove this critical matter. That is, by proving you are the one who is being taken and not the one who is being left. That is to ask, will you still be here once the displeasure of Elohim has passed? Will the master bid you stay? When the millennial kingdom is established, will you still be here or will you die along the way? Now, here is today's assignment. Meditate on the word you have heard today and ask the Father to reveal the truth to you. Remember, where there is no conviction, there can be no faith. And without faith, it is impossible to please Him. Next, if the Spirit is leading you and you have not signed up for our mailing list, you can go to www.transformationbytruth.com to sign up today. We'll alert you as soon as podcasts are posted, and we'll share our presentations, notes, and other materials at no cost. It is for your edification. And most importantly, you will be connected to me and those who have joined themselves to this ministry as we prophesy and align current events with the prophetic word. These discussions are taking place outside of this podcast ministry. Therefore, if the Spirit is leading you, and only if the Spirit is leading you, I encourage you to come and see. You will be in good spiritual company. Lastly, if you have any questions, please submit them via our contact form on our website. If you have any comments, please share those on the video page for this podcast, also on our website. Now, here is what's next. We completed today's podcast, End Times 162, One Taken, One Left, Part 2. And the next podcast is End Times 164, One Taken, One Left, Part 3. I will post this podcast on Friday, May 26, 2023. Until then, my friends, continue to be led by the Spirit of Elohim, continue to watch, continue to pray, continue in fasting, and most of all, continue to be focused, for the end is coming. The end is near.